Anarcho capitalism is terrible. I'm not here to argue whether it's capitalism or whatever it is. Laissez-faire capitalism or anarcho capitalism, whatever you call it, is absolutely terrible. It's possibly the worst possible state of things could be under. Possibly fascism is worse. Um, I don't have a lot of time to explain this, so I'm gonna rush right to it. First anarchism. I'm an anarchist. I will say anarchism exists in two ways. It's an abstract political idea, and it is also a social movement. Uh, you can be an anarchist by reading Proudhon, reading Emma Goldman, and never going to a protest in your life, or you can go to the you could protest the G8, you could protest the World Bank, you can be an anarchist and not really even read. You can make food in you can have a rooftop garden and donate it. You could be an anarchist and not even read. I mean, you really should read. But you can participate in anarchist activity, or you can read anarchist literature. It exists in two ways. Now, I'm going to mainly discuss anarcho-capitalism as a social idea, as an abstract political idea, and how it would be if it was implemented, and how it is when it is implemented. But also, just a quick note: when I was in the anti-war movement, there was a lot of anarchists there. Not everyone would say they were an anarchist. Um, a lot of people would later become anarchists. They were more socialists or just leftists or general anti-authoritarians, and then they weren't really. But either way, I never saw any anarcho-capitalists, not even any libertarians or the Campus Anti-War Network throughout the Midwest. No. Uh, I figured they just didn't exist, or they were just kind of the type of people who sit at home. They don't really go out to protest. They're not really big into that. And I mean, I can say okay. But now that there's these Tea Party things, and you see anarcho-capitalists going out with really strong force. They look like European anarchists almost, but they're not protesting the war. They didn't show any of this force against the war. They're showing this force against socialized medicine, which, I mean, yeah, even let's say I'll give you your ideas if you believe socialized medicine is bad, but under anarcho-capitalism, the war is just as bad. If not, it's definitely worse. It costs more money, and it only hurts people. It doesn't help people. Nobody's getting cured with the war in Iraq. Anyway, as we go, one of the main reasons I'm involved in anarchism is because of the part of the general workers' movement. It developed alongside the socialist movement and basically the workers' movement. Most people have had crappy jobs. They were not able to quit, and there's a sense of helplessness. This sense of helplessness would be even greater if your very survival depended on this job. You're not in a place to, even a college kid who has a job that they could quit, is not in a very good position to argue, position of leverage with their boss, because that job still means money for a Friday night out. It's still significant, and it's not that easy to get a new job. Um, what's absolutely disgusting about anarcho-capitalism is it takes away all the rights that workers have fought for. It takes away minimum wage laws, and it takes away standard work conditions. If you look, I have a lot of links to what anarcho-capitalism looks like in practice. It's free trade zones, and it's also references to what labor looked like before we had these regulations put in on how work conditions had to be. Anarcho-capitalism, it's regressive in basic human rights. Most people believe in liberalization of drug laws. A lot of people believe in liberalization of drug laws, that people should be able to do what they want with their free time, like gay marriage, these sorts of things. You could basically liberty. You can do what you do. What anarcho-capitalism does is it accepts these basic rights, and in that way it's good. But there's other rights that people have claimed, and people can claim rights. It says that education isn't a right, Medicare isn't a right, because we don't make these things. See, I only have a right to that which I produce myself, or that I acquire myself. So if I get a joint, it's my right to smoke it. But it's not my right to just eat. I don't make air, I don't make water, I don't make any of these things. I still consider them my right, and I'm claiming them as my right. That's the whole point of a movement, to claim things. And anarcho-capitalism is just very regressive in that way. It denies people the right to have the basic necessities they need to survive. That survival isn't a right, it's something you have to earn. And I believe that as a human being, I have the right to just be alive. And that's the point of being in a civilized society. And I don't want to join some form of political movement that will take things that I already have now. I would rather have these things. Now, anarcho-capitalism seems to worship at the altar of the market economy. A lot of anarcho-capitalists, however, don't really seem to understand economics very well. They live under a large amount of fallacies. One is that money put into the economy just distributes itself evenly. Yes, if there were no taxes, then firms would be able to pay less, and they would be able to charge less. But you have to look at things from sort of a game theory point of view. What's the incentive of the firm to pay somebody? I mean, they would be able to pay more. What would be the incentive of a firm to pay more to an employee? If it has to, it wants to maximize production. So if they can increase wages or they can keep wages the same, they'll keep wages the same. It wants to, the price is not determined by how cheap you can sell. Price is determined, in some cases, the price might go down. But in some cases, the price might stay the exact same. The price will be whatever price is most economically feasible. Now, monopolies, oligopolies. Many anarcho-capitalists will say that these only form because of the government. That's completely wrong. I have some links that show you basic economic theory, how some study of economics. I suggest you get a basic textbook. Monopolies and oligopolies form because of economies of trade. And economies of trade are when it becomes cheaper for large firms to produce products at the margin. This works in retail, like Walmart. It's cheaper for them to sell. They can sell things for cheaper than a mom and pop store. It's cheaper for all manufacturing. This ruler, this shirt, this computer, anything that's manufactured in a factory is done cheaper than it would be if it was manufactured on a smaller scale. Now, you might say, well, these don't form monopolies. There's a point at peaks. It really doesn't matter. What matters is the average person can't just start a business. There are only certain businesses where the average person can just start it. And even those businesses are being infringed upon, like fast food infringes upon the restaurant business. Some businesses will always exist in that way, like interior designers or something like that. Now, but regardless, the fact is, majority of people under anarcho-capitalism will not be in one of these ridiculous scenarios where I pick berries and I trade them for a guitar. They'll be working for the berry factory or the guitar factory or something of that nature. And they'll have no protection. They'll be working for these factories where all the power is in the hand of the large industrialists. All the progress that workers have made through the years will have been erased immediately. Unions might still exist, but the factories can do whatever they want to break the unions. They can hire their own thugs. Leading me to the final reason why anarcho-capitalism is terrible, the state. The state right now consists of police and soldiers. These people are violent. I'm not a really big fan of police or soldiers, but there's regulations and rules they have to follow. In the future, the rich will hire them. They won't have any connection to the people. They won't be voted in. They can't be fired. They can't be voted out by popular demand. They exist to serve those who pay them. And there'll be private security companies. Now, I had the option of working for a private security company, and of that company, 3 out of 4 people were not given the job because they had previous felony. They had felony charges within the past 7 years. Anarcho-capitalists argue that private security won't influence the same people who won't. The people who gravitate towards private security won't be the same who gravitate towards police. They won't be authoritarians. No, it'll be more criminal element. If you look at examples of private security in modern society, we have the oldest, the mafia, and then if we have private security without capitalism, without any state regulating it, that's exactly what Blackwater is. Basically, private security are people who are willing to be violent for money. And under anarcho-capitalism, they will be the only ones with the capability of committing acts of violence. People wonder why in the Wild West there's this cowboy. This cowboy is a myth. In reality, the Wild West was, and anarcho-capitalism would be, bandits running everything. Well, that's it. Mercenaries would be in control.